The Committee on Public Petitions laid its report on the table of the House on the 12th of March, the year being 2024. So we expect a resumption of debate on this motion by the Committee on Public Petitions. This motion has a balance of about 2 hours and 30 minutes. And so members will be deliberating and debating that motion. The other motion for debate this afternoon is the report of the Auditor General on the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 9 constituencies in Bungoma County. This is a motion by the Committee on Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee that the House adopts the report of the Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee on its consideration of the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements, or these are financial statements for the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 9 constituencies in Bungoma County. The Committee on Decentralized Funds laid its report on the table of the House on the 7th day of March this year. And another motion set for consideration this afternoon is a motion by the Chairperson, Public Investments Committee on Social Services and Matters Administration and Agriculture. This is in regards to reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of specified state corporations. In this motion, the committee, through its chair, seeks to have the House adopt the report of the Public Investments Committee on its services, the Public Investment Committee on Social Services, Administration and Agriculture on its consideration of the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the Kenya Medical Training College for the financial years 2017-2018 all the way to 2020-2021, the Kenyatta University Technical Referral, the Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital, for the financial years 2019-2020, the Kenya Medical Research Institute for the financial years 2012-2013, as well as 2013 and 2014, and the Kenya Medical Laboratory Technicians and Technologists Board for the financial year 2014-2015 all the way to 2020 to 2021. And finally, the other report by the Committee on Public Investments is the report of the Auditor General on the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council for the financial year 2017-2018 all the way to 2020-2021. The committee laid its report on the table of the House on the 22nd day of February 2024. The final motion that is set for consideration this afternoon is a motion by the Chairperson on Parliamentary Broadcasting and Library on enhancing reporting of parliamentary business on online platforms. In this particular motion, the committee, through its chair, seeks to have the House adopt the report of the Select Committee on Parliamentary Broadcasting and Library on enhancing reporting of parliamentary business in online platforms. And the committee laid its report on the table of the House on the 4th day of October 2023. If you're just joining us, the business of the National Assembly is just about to commence the Speaker's procession, as well as the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Dr. Moses Wetangula, in the chamber this afternoon. Allow me to hand you over for this live broadcast. Enjoy your viewing and good afternoon.
Mheshimiwa, tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako umetua nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala wa haki wa wanadamu, tukusihi utazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao wameridhika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri yetu. Tukuomba uteremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, na utujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Sergeant, you may ring the bell. Clerk, can you read out the...
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Messages. Yes, honorable members, there is a communication at order number 2, which I'll do slightly later. Next order.
Order number 3, messages.
All members on their feet, take your seats. Minority Whip, take your seat. Members on their feet, take your seats. Members coming in, take the nearest seats. Take the nearest seats. Thank you. Honorable members, I've got 2 messages to convey to the House. The first one is on the referral by His Excellency the President of the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 30 of 2024, and bridging the fiscal deficit in the financial year 2024-25 budget. Honorable members, I wish to take this opportunity to welcome you back to the House after the just concluded short recess. You will recall that the recess was preceded by illegal access and damage to the precincts of Parliament by unauthorized persons at the tail end of the consideration of the Finance Bill 2024. We have ventilated on this and other pertinent matters during the members' Kamkunji this morning, and I commend members for the bipartisan discussions. Having said that, I wish to report to the House that on 27th June 2024, I received a memorandum from His Excellency the President referring the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 30 of 2024 back to the House for reconsideration in accordance with the provisions of Article 115 of the Constitution. Members at the bar, take the nearest seats. This will be a little long. Take the nearest seats. Side poster. Take the nearest seats. Honorable members, in the memorandum, His Excellency the President expressed reservations on the contents of the bill in its entirety and recommended the deletion of all clauses of the bill. In making the recommendations, the President noted the widespread expression of dissatisfaction by the public on the contents of the bill. Therefore, the proposed deletion of all the provisions of the bill will accord with its general rejection by the public. Honourable members, Standing Order 42.2 provides that if a passage if a message is received from the President at a time when the House is not in session, the Speaker shall forthwith cause the message to be transmitted to every member and report the message to the House on the day the House next sits. Consequently, in keeping with the provisions of Standing Order 42.2, on 27 June 2024, I notified all members of the message from the President and referred the memorandum from the President to the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning for expeditious consideration. Honourable members, following the submission of the memorandum, my office received several inquiries from members of Parliament and the general public regarding the fate of the bill and the manner of bringing the fiscal deficit arising from its rejection. Various misleading opinions have also been advanced on the fate of the bill following its referral back to the House. Given the gravity and import of the matter, I issued an explainer with a view to creating clarity and understanding on both procedural and legal tenets relating to the referral. Honourable members, one of the primary concerns then was on whether the President can propose the deletion of all operative clauses in a bill or indeed the entire bill. From the onset, I wish to clarify that the President's memorandum recommending rejection of the entire bill, though significant, was neither exceptional in our legislative history nor new to this august House. Members may recall that on 2nd May 2024, I conveyed a message from the President relating to the referral of the Penal Code Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill, number 56 of 2022 back to the House for reconsideration. In the memorandum, the President expressed reservation on Clause 2 of the bill, which was the operative provision in the bill, and further recommended its deletion. This essentially constituted a rejection of the whole bill. Similarly, members at the bar, take the nearest seats. The nearest seats. Similarly, in the 11th and 12th Parliaments, the then President referred the Central Bank Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 28 of 2014, and the Law of Contract Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 1 of 2019, back to the National Assembly for reconsideration. In both instances, the recommendation from the President was the deletion of the operative clauses of the bills, which in essence constituted rejection of the said bills. Honourable members, a strict reading of Article 115 of the Constitution shows that no limitation is imposed on the nature of reservations or indeed the recommendations that the President ought to make on a bill. Indeed, this is also reflected in the practice in other comparative jurisdictions. For instance, in the U.S. Congress, the President, while referring a bill back to the House, may either choose to provide general recommendations based on the reservations, the bill, or propose the actual text to be added or deleted from the specified parts of the bill. Honourable members, concerns were also raised on whether the Finance Bill 2024, having been referred back to the National Assembly, would become law due to affliction of time on the basis of the provisions of Article 115 of the Constitution. For clarity, Article 115 of 6 of the Constitution states, and I quote, 115.6, if the President does not assent to a bill or refer it back within the period prescribed in Clause 1, the bill shall be taken to have been assented to the expiry of that period. For context, Article 115.1 of the Constitution provides that within 14 days after receipt of a bill, the President shall A, assent to the bill, B, refer the bill back to Parliament for reconsideration by Parliament, noting any reservations that the President has concerning the bill. A clear reading of these provisions reveals that the 14-day period applies to the President's action regarding assent or refusal to assent to a bill. As soon as any of the actions contemplated under Article 115.1 is undertaken by the President within the timelines prescribed, the application of Article 115.6 ceases to apply. In this regard, I wish to reiterate that the Constitution ought not to be construed in a narrow or sophistic sense. The Constitution should be interpreted broadly and liberally in accordance with the guiding principles provided under Article 259.1 of the Constitution. Bearing this in mind, it becomes evident that the 14-day period specified in Article 115 is a timeline for the President's action and not a date when the bill automatically becomes law. Therefore, the concerns alluding to the possibility of the Finance Bill 2024 becoming law due to a fluctuation of time were and still are unfounded and a miscomprehension of the provisions of the Constitution. This also explains why the House was not recalled from recess for special sittings. Honourable members, now that the regular sittings of the House have resumed, I wish to state that Standing Order 154.2 requires the House to consider the President's reservations within 21 days when the House next meets. Under normal circumstances, the House would have had 21 days from today within which to consider and dispense with the memorandum. However, noting that the memorandum had already been referred to the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning for consideration on the 27th June 2024, I've been briefed that the committee is yet to conclude its consideration and shall table a report to the House on or before Tuesday, 30th July 2024, that is next week. Honourable members, permit me at this point to remind the House of the Speaker's communication of 28th July 2015 concerning the consideration of the President's reservations to a bill and amendments thereto. Members at the bar, take the nearest seats. The nearest seats. Honourable members, permit me at this point to remind the House of the Speaker's communication on 28th July 2015 concerning the consideration of the President's reservations to a bill and amendments thereto. Take a seat, Honourable Member. As per the guidance, any member who wishes to move the House to reinstate any clause of the Finance Bill 2024 shall be required to marshal the support of at least 233 members of this House. This is in keeping with the provisions of Article 115.4 of the Constitution, which requires that such a proposal be supported by at least 2/3 of the members of the National Assembly. Conversely, agreement with the President's reservations and the recommendation to delete all the clauses of the bill shall only require the support of a simple majority of the members present and voting. This is in line with the provisions of Article 115.2a of the Constitution, as read with Article 122.1 of the Constitution. Honourable members, when the memorandum will be scheduled by the House Business Committee for the clause-by-clause consideration of the bill, the House will convert itself into a committee of the whole House for that purpose. Any amendments to be proposed to the bill will be proceeded with in the manner I have guided. Honorable members, having conveyed the message from the President, I now wish to address the various measures that need to be undertaken to bridge the fiscal deficit arising from the rejection of the Finance Bill 2024. On the Division of Revenue Act 2024, Article 218 of the Constitution requires Parliament to introduce the Division of Revenue Bill and the County Allocation of Revenue Bill at least 2 months before the end of each financial year. The Division of Revenue Bill divides revenue raised by the national government among the national and county levels of government. On its part, the County Allocation of Revenue Bill divides the revenue allocated to the county level of government among the counties. As members will recall, His Excellency the President ascended to the Division of Revenue Bill Act 2024 on 10th June 2024. The Act provides for the division of revenue raised nationally between the national government and the county governments for the financial year 2024-25. In particular, the Act provides that the total shareable revenue is Kenya shillings 2.9 trillion, out of which 2.5 trillion was allocated to the national government and 400 billion was allocated to county governments. The revenue apportioned by the Division of Revenue Act was based on projections of revenue intended to be raised by the national government in financial year 2024-25. As such, the amounts in the Division of Revenue Act 2024 may only be realized if the projected revenues are actually collected by the national government. Any shortfall in the projected revenue collection has a significant bearing on the shares apportioned between the two levels of government. Honorable members, it's estimated that the rejection of the Finance Bill 2024 will occasion a financial gap of approximately 346 billion. This gap shall significantly impact the amounts apportioned by the Division of Revenue Act, the revenue due to counties under the County Allocation of Revenue Bill 2024, and the monies appropriated to finance the budget for financial year 2024-25. On the County Allocation of Revenue Bill 2024, I am aware that on 10th July 2024, His Excellency the President did refer back the County Allocation of Revenue Bill 2024 to the Senate for reconsideration in light of the anticipated fiscal deficit. Article 219 of the Constitution obligates the national government to transfer the equitable share apportioned to counties in the Division of Revenue Act without reduction. To ensure that the national government does not default on its obligations, the Division of Revenue Act 2024 ought to be amended to reflect the revenue that the national government is capable of transferring to the counties in view of the current reality. Failure to amend the Division of Revenue Act 2024 shall result in the national government owing a financial obligation which it cannot clearly meet. In addition to the proposed reconsideration of the County Allocation of Revenue Bill 2024 by the Senate, it's expected that the chairperson of the Budget and Appropriations Committee shall introduce a bill to effect necessary amendments to the Division of Revenue Act 2024. On Supplementary Estimates 1, with regard to the monies already appropriated by the House to finance the budget for the year 2024-25, I wish to remind the House of the notification I issued on 12th July 2024, informing you of the submission of the first supplementary estimates for the financial year 2024-25, which I referred to the Budget and Appropriations Committee and the departmental committees for expedited consideration. The supplementary estimates seek to rationalize the financial year 2024-25 budget estimates to align with the revised fiscal framework and actualized expenditure cuts across the three arms of government, constitutional commissions, and independent offices. As guided in my notification on 12th July 2024, the Budget and Appropriations Committee is expected to table its report on the supplementary estimates 1 on or before tomorrow, Wednesday, 24th July 2024. The House shall thereafter consider the said estimates and the resultant legislation to give effect to the revised fiscal framework and the proposed expenditure reductions. The House is accordingly guided, and I thank you. Members at the bar, take the nearest seats before the next communication. Yes, Honorable Junet.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to comment on this matter.
You know, communication from the chair is never debated.
Mr. Speaker, it's true, but this is a very, very weighty matter, Mr. Speaker, the memorandum from the President on the finance bill.
Yes.
For the simple reason, Mr. Speaker, first, when you look at this memorandum, you'll realize that Kenyans have not yet come to understand very well on how Parliament operates. What stages that a bill goes through, the first reading, second reading, third reading, and also what happens when a bill is presented to the President for assent. So, Mr. Speaker, we used to have, as a friend of mine said that yesterday, that a colleague of mine, we used to have open days in Parliament where people used to be taken through these processes of the bill making, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a very, very important decision that has been made on a very important bill in this country, Mr. Speaker. And you know very well, before we went on recess, how emotive and how controversial this bill was, Mr. Speaker. And there are people in the country, our voters, who believe that this bill is becoming a law, Mr. Speaker. They believe that this bill is going to be implemented. But, Mr. Speaker, and this is an unprecedented situation, because this is the first time since I came to this Parliament 10 years ago that a bill, the President has deleted every clause of a bill, Mr. Speaker. I'm not sure whether he has deleted even the title of the bill. We need to check that in the memorandum. But he has deleted every clause of the bill, Mr. Speaker. It's unprecedented. It has never happened. In the last 10 years, we used to have a memorandum that comes to the House where the President could have issues with one clause, 2 or 3 clauses. This is the first time that a whole bill has been deleted. What does that mean, Mr. Speaker? If you ask me as a legislature here, because you have to raise 2/3 numbers to undo what he has recommended, according to me, this bill is, what do they say, dead as a dodo, Mr. Speaker. They say dodo is an animal that used to live in Malaysia, which is instinct now. So the bill is instinct as we...
Malaysia, Madagascar.
Madagascar, you're right, Mr. Speaker, in Madagascar. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill, as we speak, is dead, because I don't think we have the capacity to raise 2/3 in this House, and we don't intend to do, because of the whip, I will not provide the 2/3 from our side, to undo what the President has done. So, Mr. Speaker, it is very important to give clarity to our voters, to give clarity to Kenyans that this bill is dead. We only need to agree on a burial date where we are going to do the burial rites, and we bury it properly and we forget about it. In our area, it's called Teruburu. We just do the Teruburu and we finish with this thing, Mr. Speaker.
You've made your point. Okay. Give him the mic.
My last point is this, Mr. Speaker. In your communication also, other than the issues that came back from the presidency, is the issue of how to deal with the supplementary budget 1 and the county revenue allocation. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge this House again. Let us look at those things objectively. It is this House that can know where to cut that money from in the budget, Mr. Speaker. And I want to urge the Budget Committee to sit down and look with a tooth comb the budget that was passed and make sure that we remove excess baggage and excess fat from areas that Kenyans don't need money for. Let us not touch issues that are very important to Kenyans. That is the work of the Budget Committee. Let them stand up to the occasion, and the majority leader has been a budget chairman for 7 years. He knows, he can guide them. Let us not cut the money from where we think that the Kenyans will feel pain. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I agree the deletion, and will be presiding over the burial of that bill when it is brought here.
Honorable members, I'm not opening debate on this. The communication is not to elicit debate. But Junet is right. The mischievous and misleading comments about the fate of the bill upon rejection unfortunately came from some of our own members here. Members continued churning out fake news to the public about the fate of the bill, to the effect that within 14 days it was going to become law, which was false. One senior member even sent me a draft bill to repeal the finance bill that was not an act of law. And I politely reminded him that you cannot repeal an existing act. You cannot repeal a rejected bill. And this point comes home to all of us. The finance bill was the genesis, probably the catalyst of the events that we have witnessed in the country. Continuing to churn fake news about the finance bill is to compound the problem in the country. So I urge all of us to follow the procedure. Junet, you are right that it might be difficult for any member proposing to save a clause in the bill to raise 2/3 majority, knowing how this House operates. But under the Constitution and the standing orders, we must go through the entire rigmarole to make sure that the bill comes back to the House. You sit as a committee of the whole, you consider each clause. If there is nobody challenging the deletion by the President, you vote with a simple majority present and voting, meaning our quorum number being 50, half of that is 25. They can vote to 26, can vote to support the President's memorandum. Any one of you who wants to save any part of the bill, including the title, marshal 233 members when it comes so that you can vote to save it. Thank you. Yes, McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to, on behalf of the Finance Committee, to report that we've already met as a committee and done our report, and we are ready to table tomorrow morning, Mr. Speaker.
Excellent. Then we will finish it even faster. Members on their feet, take your seats. I have another message to deliver. Bowen, stop greeting colleagues and take a seat. Honorable members, the second message from His Excellency the President is on nomination of persons for appointment to the offices of Cabinet Secretaries. Honorable members, Standing Order 42.1 relating to message from the President provides that the Speaker shall read to the House any message from the President delivered to the Speaker for communication to the House. In this regard, I wish to convey to the House that I have received a message from His Excellency the President notifying the nomination of various persons for appointment to the offices of Cabinet Secretaries. In the message, His Excellency the President conveys that in excess of powers conferred on him by Articles 152(2) of the Constitution, as read together with Sections 3 and 5 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, he nominates various persons for appointment to the aforementioned offices. For clarity, Article 152(2) of the Constitution states, and I quote, "The President shall nominate and with approval of the National Assembly appoint cabinet secretaries." The names of persons submitted to this House for approval for appointment as cabinet secretaries are as follows: Honorable Professor Kithure Kindiki, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Interior and National Administration. Dr. Deborah Mulongo Barasa, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Health. Honorable Alice Wahome, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development. Dr. Julius Migos Ogamba, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Education. Honorable Roslinda Soipan Tuya, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Defense. Dr. Andrew Mwihia Karanja, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development. Order. 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 On order. Honorable Rosalinda Soipan Tuya, AGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Defense. Dr. Andrew Mwihia Karanja, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Agriculture and Livestock Development. Order, honorable members. Order. Order. Honorable Aden Bare Duale, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry. Order. Mr. Order, honorable members, order. 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 I shall not repeat. Order. Honorable Eric Murithi Muuga, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. Mr. Davis Chirchir, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Roads and Transport. Dr. Margaret Nyambura Ndungu, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Information, Communication and the Digital Economy. In view of the foregoing and pursuant to the provisions of Section 8 of the Public Appointments, order. Order. Order, honorable members. Order. Honorable members, in view of the foregoing and in pursuant to the provisions of Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011, as read together with the Standing Order 42.3, I hereby refer the message from the President together with the curriculum vitae of the nominees to the Committee on Appointments. Order, honorable members. Order. Order, honorable members. Can we listen to the communication? Honorable members, Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011 provides that unless otherwise provided in law, the committee to which such nomination is referred shall consider the matter and table a report in the House within 28 days. It is therefore imperative that the Committee on Appointments immediately commences the process of consideration of the nominees. The Committee on Appointments is expected to immediately notify the nominees and the general public, commence the necessary approval hearings, and table its report in the House soonest to enable the House to consider the nominees within the stipulated timelines. I thank you. Next. No. Hakuna. Order. Yes, Junet, order. Order, honorable members. Junet, what is it?
Huh? Yeah. Mr. Speaker.
Order.
Mr. Speaker.
I'll come to you. Yes. Order, members. Yes, Junet.
Mr. Speaker, Kaluma. Mr. Speaker, they normally say in Parliament, what you communicate is what is communicated and that is what is final. But I'm not sure whether this list is the same one, Mr. Speaker. We cannot change your records in Parliament, but we are really in doubt whether this is the real one. But we shall wait. Mr. Speaker, having said that, Mr. Speaker, I want to speak on this matter and say this. Mr. Speaker, this time and this period in Parliament, Mr. Speaker, I want to tell members, my colleagues, that vetting of this CSS is not going to be business as usual. This time, Mr. Speaker, and this time, Mr. Speaker, I repeat for the third time, if somebody is not suitable, if somebody is not capable, if somebody doesn't have the capacity, we are going to throw him out, Mr. Speaker. We must do justice to Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, and we must do our work properly this time, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I participated in the vetting of the last CSS, Mr. Speaker. We know what people told us in that vetting, and we know there are people who have come back. If your records of net worth is not colluding or is not balancing, Mr. Speaker, just know we will throw you out of the window, not even the door. Mr. Speaker, the responsibility of making sure who is suitable and who meets the requirement of becoming a CS is vested in this House, Mr. Speaker, through the Parliamentary Approval Act.
Honorable Junet,
I'm finishing, Mr. Speaker.
You are a member of the vetting committee.
Mr. Speaker, I'm concluding, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is this House that is going to make sure it is this House that is going to make sure, Mr. Speaker, Kenyans get value for their money. It is this House that is going to make sure, Mr. Speaker, if you know brothers and sisters who have been nominated, if you know you don't qualify, please leave early before you come to this House. This time we will put you in front of Kenyans bare, Mr. Speaker. Bare, naked bare, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Kenyans are tired. And Kenyans are saying that they don't mind anybody becoming a CS. They want to have CSS in offices, but they want to have the right people who are qualified, Mr. Speaker. And we are going to do our constitutional mandate, Mr. Speaker, to make sure, especially for those who are in offices before and who have been brought back, you will see what we are going to do to you people, Mr. Speaker. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I am prepared for the vetting committee to kutana na hiyo watu mundu kumundu. Mundu kumundu. Mundu kumundu.
Thank you. Yes, Kamket. Remember, honorable members, we don't debate communication such as this. Yes, Kamket.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, while what you've read could be contradictory to what we heard the President announce, well, I would like you, Mr. Speaker, to confirm, indeed, that what you've read is actually what was communicated by the head of state. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I have heard the Honorable Junet threatening those cabinet nominees. The Honorable Junet, Mr. Speaker, while the bar must be raised high for anyone appointed to cabinet, Mr. Speaker, or any other public position, we do not also expect that we are going, or His Excellency the President is going to appoint angels into cabinet. So, in as much as Honorable Junet is here threatening those nominees, even him, Honorable Junet, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. And therefore, he must not stand here and threaten the careers of other Kenyans as if he's a very clean man. Even him, we know him also, Mr. Speaker.
Order. There is no motion against him here. Yes, Sunguli?
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for the message that you have delivered, and I want to say that I'm sure that this time the list is very correct. And on behalf of the people of Narok, I want in advance to congratulate Honorable Soipan Tuya for coming back to a very important ministry.
Order, Sunguli. Order. Soipan is not a minister yet. She's only proposed. Kiborek? Order. Order, let's hear Honorable Kiborek.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to, Mr. Speaker, will it be in order for the House to revet those CSS who have been vetted by the same House previously? My second point, Mr. Speaker, is there is many rumors going around that there's a broad-based government, Mr. Speaker. Is there a possibility that Mbadi doesn't want to sit because maybe it will be something in the next coming days, Mr. Speaker? Maybe the arrogance has started getting to his head, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, or maybe the humility, because I know Mbadi is a very humble guy. Maybe, I don't know, or maybe Junet is an interested party, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Kiborek.
Mr. Speaker, I was asking, is it in order to revet those CSs who have been vetted before, Mr. Speaker? Lastly, Mr. Speaker, in the same House and the same Parliament to revet the CSs for the second time. And thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, Honorable Kiborek. Under the Constitution and the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, everybody, whether they were in the dismissed cabinet or not, once reappointed, must be vetted by this House. In fact, the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act says the persons to be vetted include those appointed and reappointed. That is the law. So those who have been reappointed, of course, I've read in some public fora whether persons who have been reappointed after dismissal qualify to be so reappointed. Again, the answer is in the affirmative. Unless you have been dismissed for breaching Chapter 6 of the Constitution, unless you have been dismissed for violating the Constitution and being unaccountable in the management of public resources. The dismissal assigned no reasons for the dismissal, and therefore they are eligible for reappointment, and under the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, you will vet them and vote on their reappointment. Dr. Nyikal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Last time you nearly assaulted me on the chair because I didn't give you time to speak.
Thank you today.
I hope now it mitigates everything.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, what we are discussing is so important because it is actually the crux of the matter of what is happening in the country today. The ministers, the cabinet secretaries were dismissed from public pressure because due to public pressure, apparently, clearly, the public, going by what was happening, had actually lost confidence in the government. And when they invaded parliament, this was a loss of confidence and on Parliament and its credibility. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the process that is now reversing that must start in the most transparent way, without doubt, absolutely. Mr. Speaker, what the President announced is definitely different from what you have read to us. Mr. Speaker, at that point alone, the public will not really have confidence in what we are doing, unless probably the President came and first of all made the changes. He has the appeal to do that. But what the public knows of the people we are going to vet is actually what he announced. Now, what we are going to vet now is totally different. Mr. Speaker, what the people believe, whether they are right or wrong, is important. People act from their belief. And when they were running and attacking the National Assembly, it is arising from their deep belief that we do not represent their interest, we are not credible to them. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I find, and you really need to clarify this, why the list you have read to us is different from what the President read. We are starting from a very weak point on that basis alone, Mr. Speaker. We really need to preserve this country, and particularly this House. The challenges are going to be bigger. Leave alone the issue that you dismiss people and then you bring them back. The question is, why did you dismiss them in the first place? But leaving that aside, Mr. Speaker, that credibility is required. We should have the same list, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Dr. Nyikal, as a House of Parliament, we are a House of record. And the record we have is a communication from the Executive Office of the President. And it must be in writing and signed by the President. And it is right here. That is the President's signature, you can see. And that is the communication letter from the Head of Public Service. The President, like anybody else, has the right to change his mind on what he has decided. What is important is the record that comes to this House. And the record that has arrived in this House is what I have read to you. Remember that nobody will become minister, one, until and unless the President has written to Parliament, two, until Parliament has sat in committee and vetted, and three, until the whole House has voted on the report of the vetting committee. That is what is important, Honorable Nyikal. We have had cases before where members were pronounced on media as having been appointed as ambassadors, and we have received communication that shows that they have been transposed from one station to another, and we have vetted them without question. In any case, the proposed names that I've read to you are not ministers until you pass in this House. So there's nothing inconsistent. Yes, Kaluma?
I thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I'm not fortunate to sit in the committee on appointments. But Honorable Speaker, let me tell the members of that committee something the High Court said a short while back as they go into that critical process before I make my last comment.
They includes yours truly here. I'm the chair of that committee.
You are the chair?
Yes.
You are the chair. And I'm your loyal assistant, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in the year 2018, this is what the High Court said regarding public appointments under the new Constitution. And I quote, Honorable Speaker, that August 27, 2010, ushered in a new regime of appointments to public office, whereas the past was characterized by open corruption, tribalism, nepotism, favoritism, scrapping the barrow, and political patronage. The new dispensation requires a break from the past. The Constitution Sorry, Honorable Speaker. The Constitution signifies the end of jobs for the boys era. Article 10 sets out the values that must be infused in every decision-making process. Honorable Speaker, I'm saying this is a critical reminder to us because we are at a point in time when the nation is looking unto this House to provide the leadership it needs. Honorable Speaker, it is for this reason that last week, even as the ODM party, independent parties of Azimio also, we sat and said that the government of Kenya belongs to all of us. And Honorable Speaker, we met as ODM and we resolved so. I'm saying this because I don't want some confusion I've seen circulating. Somebody writing saying if members of the ODM party are appointed to government, they are going on their own. We met and resolved so. And Honorable Speaker, don't say no. When the ODM party speaks, even as the Mio has spoken, Honorable Speaker, there is a tendency coming up in this country. Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me explain to these people the law. Let me explain to these people the law. I will speak.
Order.
Honorable Speaker.
Order, honorable members. Honorable Jalaz.
Yes. Yeah, we want to speak.
This is not a baraza in Langata. This is a House of Parliament. Go on.
Honorable, let me address, Honorable Speaker, what is in Article 232 of the Constitution. It says the public service will have the face of Kenya. All ethnic communities will be there. Persons of the gender quotas prescribed under Article 27 will be there. Honorable Speaker, as a person from an ethnic community, I will not agree to a position where people say everybody is in the government of Kenya except Luos. Yet Luos also pay taxes. Honorable Speaker, I therefore want to congratulate the President for the appointment, but request the President that within the week, as soon as tomorrow, we want to see those other appointments Baba was to forward to him. And we want all of them approved. And Honorable Speaker, if that can happen, then we are going to push this thing very fast. We cannot leave anybody out. And Honorable Speaker, let me send a warning. We want to tell people sending conflicting positions from the ODM to remember that they are on an interim position in those positions. We can remove them if we resolve a position and then they contradict it. This one has to happen for the good of the nation, and we are telling the government we are ready to serve to secure that Kenya moves properly. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Order, honorable members. Order. Next order. Next order. Next order. Order, honorable members, order. 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 That order of messages is over. Order. Honorable Wino, take your seat. Order, honorable members. We'll now go back to order number 2, where I have a communication. The messages are over. The message on finance bill and appointments is over. Honorable members, I have a communication. Order. Order, Honorable Were. Order. This is a communication on allegations of bribery of members of parliament in the discharge of parliamentary duties. Order, I don't want any assistance. Just do the listening, let me do the talking. Honorable members, I wish to inform the House that my office is in receipt of correspondences dated 24th and 25th June 2024 from various members of Parliament regarding allegations of bribery of members of Parliament during the voting on the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 30 of 2024. The honorable members include the Honorable Joseph Munyoro MP, the Honorable Joses Koskel Elmengit MP, the Honorable Jane Kagiri MP, the Honorable Kanyuida Mutunga PhD MP, and the Honorable Didimas Wekesa Barasa MP. The Honorable Didimas Barasa MP also raised the matter on the floor of the House on Wednesday, 25th June 2024. In their complaint, the members allege that on Sunday, 23rd June 2024, the member for Juja, the Honorable George Koimburi, MP, was quoted across various media outlets claiming that members of this House who voted in support of the second reading of the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 30 of 2024, were bribed with 2 million shillings each to do so. The affected honorable members sought my guidance on how to address this matter. In their estimation, the assertions attributed to the Honorable Koimburi, if left unsubstantiated, continue to bring shame and odium to members of Parliament and paint the entire House in bad light. Honorable members, you will recall when the matter was raised on the floor of the House, I did undertake to give a considered ruling at the next sitting of the House, which is today. In a related development, I wish to inform the House that I have also received a letter dated 22nd July 2024 from the Honorable Koimburi, titled Apology Letter. The letter indicates as follows, I quote, I, George Koimburi Ndungu, of ID number, elected member of Parliament for Juja constituency, would like to tender my apology to the House leadership and my colleague members of Parliament. I understand we are living on a very dynamic and sensitive times, and my utterances in the past may have caused some problems in the country. I'm remorseful and humbly seeking for forgiveness. As an ambassador of peace, I pray that peace do prevail in our country. God bless Kenya. Order. Today, honorable members, at the rise of the House Business Committee at 1:45 p.m., I did call the Honorable Koimburi to ascertain his authorship of the letter. The Honorable Koimburi did confirm authorship of the letter and further denied any claims that he had disowned the letter and its contents. The Honorable Member further indicated that he is currently away in Mombasa and unavailable to attend the sitting of the House until Tuesday, 30th July 2024. Honorable members, any allegation of corrupt practice, bribery, or attempted bribery is sustained on the privilege of the institution of Parliament and deserves expeditious investigations and resolution. The practice and precedents applicable of the House require that any issue touching on the privilege of the House should be dispensed with as a matter of priority. I fully appreciate the pain and discomfort that the pendence of Honorable Koimburi's allegations continues to cause the affected members. However, I've reluctantly allowed the Honorable Koimburi to avail himself to the House by 2:45 p.m. on Tuesday, 30th July 2024 to explain his actions with regard to the complaint raised by the affected members and the context of his apology letter in the manner contemplated by the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act 2017 and the standing orders. Thereafter, I shall guide the House on any subsequent actions to be taken in the matter. That is accordingly guided. The House is accordingly guided. I thank you. Yes, Majority Leader.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for that communication. Honorable Speaker, we are well guided as to your directions on Honorable Koimburi. But Honorable Speaker, I'm a bit concerned because last evening, a gentleman from his office, who I'm told is his constituency office manager, delivered a copy of that letter, and the letter indeed you're alluding to, you will see, is also copied to the offices of the Leader of Minority and the Office of the Leader of Majority. Honorable Speaker, I was able to check after the House Business Committee this afternoon, when you raised the matter before the House Business Committee, that indeed the Honorable Koimbori's PA, when he delivered the letter to my office, the copy that was stamped in my office had only one stamp. But the PA had another copy which was stamped twice, because at one instant the rubber stamp was upside down, and therefore it was stamped twice. And members will note, and Kenyans will note, that that is a letter that was circulating on social media, because I had to take great offense with my staff when I suspected they had circulated a letter on social media before I even saw it myself, because I was seeing it when I was already home after 8 p.m. But, Honorable Speaker, what worries me is that immediately that letter circulated on social media, the Honorable George Koimbori, on his own Facebook page, stamped it fake and said it was a fake letter. Honorable Speaker, it is the same letter that you are now alluding to, and you assert that you have spoken to the Honorable George Koimbori, and he confirmed it was his letter. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, even as the Honorable George Koimbori comes to shed light on what he said on the matters that were complained to, I think his behavior last evening, today, and the days before that, Honorable Speaker, brings into disrepute not just his image as an honorable member of parliament, but also the integrity of the office he holds, Honorable Speaker. And maybe we will wait to hear from him, but I just wanted to bring it to the attention of the House, the kind of member we are dealing with, so that even as he comes on Tuesday, he can also clarify as to whether these letters were fake, or he tells you it's fake. He says on social media it's fake. He tells you he's the author of the letter. We don't know which George Koimbori to believe, the one on social media, the one in churches, or the one who will be here. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, we'll wait for him, but I honestly do not know who the member for Juja now is. He has too many faces to be able to tell who the member is, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable Maua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance. Mr. Speaker, I want to support whatever the Leader of Majority has said. And Mr. Speaker, when you look at the letter that was circulating in the social media, together with whatever you have read, Mr. Speaker, it does not even detail the reason as to why he's giving an apology. So, Mr. Speaker, later on, Mr. Honorable Koimbori may say that he was not giving an apology on the level of the issue of the 2 million. So, Mr. Speaker, that letter is a bit ambiguous on the state as to why he's giving an apology. Mr. Speaker, we want to have, if at all we are to agree, a letter that is talking of an apology over an allegation that the members were given 2 million. But that one is vague and a bit ambiguous. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a house of traditions. And that's why this house is called August House. Mr. Speaker, this member has made a number of unsubstantiated allegations against individual members of parliament, against the 13th parliament, and against everybody. As much as that apology, on the face of it, as a human being, I may be tempted to accept. But Mr. Speaker, because this thing has been so much circulated and it's all over, I want to beseech you to refer this issue to the Powers and Privilege Committee, so that that document is properly subjected to justice. Justice means I want to go and appear as a witness and say the pain and the agony that I went through as a member who has been included in that particular bracket. So, Mr. Speaker, taking into account that this member has been flip-flopping also, I'm sure next time he will say he did not speak to the Speaker. And we do not want the integrity of the Speaker to be put on question. So I want to agree with the majority leader. For us to be fair, for us to be contented, for us to be satisfied, we beseech you to refer this to the Powers and Privileges Committee, and it will not only deal with this issue, it will also deal with any other member, any other will-be member who will be casting aspersion on the integrity of this House as a House and also individual members. So, Mr. Speaker, I beseech you. This will also give us an opportunity to amend if there are issues that we need to amend in the current standing orders or in the powers and privilege, so that this House remains a respected House in line with the letter and spirit of the current Constitution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Dr. Mutunga.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I believe strongly that the Honourable Koimburi was in his normal senses when he stood on the pulpit of a church and made the allegation. Honourable Speaker, the follow-up activities do not in any way indicate that Honourable Koimburi was remorseful. I believe it is because your office contacted Honourable Koimburi that he has even written the vague apology letter. Honourable Speaker.
That is not true, Mutunga.
Honourable Speaker.
My office spoke to Koimburi this afternoon after issues were raised in the Kamkunji.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for the correction. But let me adjudicate my point. Honourable Speaker, this letter has cost us a lot of pain and a lot of expenses. Wherever we go, Honourable Speaker, we are required, first of all, to deliver the 2 million before you can start doing anything. We are in a situation where members of parliament are branded in this country, and the circumstances under which this allegation was made were very, very severe. Honourable Speaker, we are in a situation where we need to redeem our image, and the Honourable Koimburi only put fuel on a burning fire. Honourable Speaker, I think we do not need Honourable Koimburi to come and give us stories here. I know, Honourable Speaker, you have the discretion, but the House, the committee should be given the responsibility that we may be able to go and tell Honourable Koimburi what we have gone through so that he may be able to suffer a bit, because he has subjected us to a lot of suffering. Many people have lost their property because of such allegations, Honourable Speaker.
Mama Nairobi.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute. Honourable Speaker, out there in the public, everybody thinks that Parliament has been under state capture. And when you have a member of Parliament that goes out there and says that he was paid 2 million shillings to vote yes, and he declined, it means that parliamentarians are not able to make decisions on their own. It takes me back to 2023. I made a decision to support the finance bill. In the social media, everybody said I had visited State House and I had gotten a package. I never visited State House. I have never met the president on a one-to-one. I have only met him in public functions. I think that when an honorable member makes such a statement, he should be put to strict proof. As a lawyer, I'm sure you understand that. If he cannot actually substantiate whatever statement he made in public, and we forgive him without him actually withdrawing and apologizing and saying he lied, then what it means is that we are coercing him to actually withdraw. We don't want him to withdraw. He said he was offered 2 million. Let him prove to us who offered him 2 million. If he lied about it, then he should be punished, because whatever he said out there implicates every member of Parliament. When I make decisions here, I make decisions based on my own reasoning, my own objectivity. Sometimes I've even gone against my own party. That means I'm not able, if I'm in Parliament as an opposition leader or government Parliament, I am not able to lose my objectivity as a citizen. And I think it is important that all of us in Parliament stand and affirm whatever it is that we say out there in public. And I really would feel ashamed if he was just forgiven and he came back. Because whatever he said there makes it very difficult for us as parliamentarians to actually stand and say we are not bribed. We actually oversight this country's various institutions. What people are seeing right now is abject corruption that is not actually being dealt with. And this corruption is not because the parliamentary oversight committees are not doing their job. It is because the reports that we make as Parliament are not moving forward. And I think it is important for us as Parliament to look at all the reports that we have made over the years that actually call for the prosecution of various members of public entities and the entities that have failed to actually address the corruption that we have oversight. So for me, I really pray and hope that we shall actually make sure that this member of Parliament is put to strict proof on the 2 million shillings that he got. He really, unless he's suffering from amnesia, if he never got an offer for 2 million and he just went out there and made an allegation that implicates all members of Parliament, then he should be punished.
Wamumbi, you are the last one. Wamumbi is the last one. Give the mic to Wamumbi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, we have heard you loud and clear. Mr. Speaker, we are requesting you. We don't want Koibori to come and give an explanation. We heard what he said. Mr. Speaker, for these members to redeem their image and their dignity, Koibori must be punished, Mr. Speaker. For this House to continue, Mr. Speaker, Koibori must be punished, Mr. Speaker, because these members need to redeem their dignity. And those members who also voted no, they also need to tell us whether they were paid to vote no. We voted yes on our own volition, Mr. Speaker. So for this House to continue, for these members to redeem their dignity, Koibori must be punished. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, honorable members. Order. Honorable members, I did say that I shall guide the House on any subsequent actions to be taken on this matter. Next order. Next order.
Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader. Yes,
the mic.
Naomi.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, July 23rd, 2024. 1, supplementary estimates, 1 for the year 2024-2025 from the National Treasury and Economic Planning and the following accompanying documents. A, program-based budget. B, recurrent estimate. C, development estimate, volume 1 and volume 2. And D, statement on financial year 2024-2025, supplementary estimate number 1. 2, legal notice number 105 of 2024 relating to the income tax, charitable organization, and donation exemption. Rules 2024, including explanatory memorandum and evidence of public participation from the National Treasury. Number 3, legal notice number 109 of 2024 relating to the road maintenance levy fund, imposition of levy. Order 2024, including explanatory memorandum and reports of the public participation from the Ministry of Roads and Transport. Number 4, report of the NGCDF Board on project proposals, approved disbursement status, and restrictions imposed on constituency account the third quarter of 2023-2024 financial year. Number 5, price stability target and economic policy of the government for the financial year 2024-2025, budget from the National Treasury. Number 6,
the June 2024 Special Audit Report of the Auditor General on debt servicing of external loans in Kenya, and number 7, the June 2024 Special Audit Report of the Auditor General on the implementation of the Global Fund program in Kenya. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I beg to lay.
Order, honorable members. Order. Order, honorable members. Honorable McClub. Who is the member talking to Honorable McClub? Take your seats. The House is in session. Honorable Babu Wino, take your seats. Those who are walking out for their coffee or conversations, do so without disrupting the proceedings of the House. Chairperson, Budget and Appropriations Committee. Is Honorable Ndindi Nyoro here? Yes, Mary Mase, are you ready with your report on supplementary estimates? You can do it later. Get in touch with your chair. Next, Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperatives.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 23rd July 2024. That is the report on the Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperatives on its inspection visit to the new Kenya Planters Cooperative Union or new KPCU warehouses in Nairobi, Sagana and Meru. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Next, Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning. Member for cases.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 23rd July 2024. Report of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning on its consideration of the President's Memorandum on the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 30 of 2024. Thank you. I beg to lay.
Order number 6. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Honorable Emase, we wait for your chairman. You will be given an opportunity to table and give notice of motion. Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperatives.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to give notice of motion. I beg to give notice of motion of the following motion, that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperatives on its inspection visit to the new Kenya Planters Cooperative Union or new KPCU warehouses in Nairobi, Sagana and Meru, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 23rd July 2024. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Next. Next.
Order number 8, motion. Public petition on funds spent contrary to the provisions of Article 223 of the Constitution. Resumption of debate.
Okay. Honorable members, we are now at order. Order, members. We are now at order number 8, public petition on funds spent, conduct provisions of Article 223 of the Constitution. Order, my record shows that Honorable Nimrod Mbai moved the motion. Honorable Janet Sitiene seconded the motion. The question was proposed, and then there was a member who claimed there was no quorum. So we now open to debate. My screen has nobody wanting to speak to this. Mover, Nimrod. Where's Nimrod? Janet Sitiane. You are the seconder. Who is Yes. Yes, Makali Mulu.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I just wanted to indulge on this matter, because this matter of 223, expenditure against 223, is actually a matter of national interest. And I think that's why the petitioner had petitioned Parliament so that the matter is discussed and debated. Now that, from what you're saying, Honorable Speaker, it was only moved and seconded, I don't know whether it will be procedural, because I'm sure members might not have had time to look at the recommendations. I don't know that it will be procedural, either you push it, you divide a bit so that we have time to look at it, or we can get a recap of the issues and then we can debate it, Honorable Speaker. Because it's a very important matter, and I think we'll be losing a very big chance as Parliament if we don't discuss this matter. And if that is not possible, Honorable Speaker, if you allow me, because it's a matter of really a lot of information on, I could also just make some general remarks as a member of the Budget Committee, as a member also of the Public and Privatization Committee. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Are you moving that we adjourn the debate on this motion?
Yeah, I would be proposing, Honorable Speaker, that we adjourn the debate to another day.
Don't propose, just move that we adjourn.
Yeah, I move that, Honorable Speaker, we adjourn the debate to another day so that we allow members to look at the report and then we can debate from an informed position.
Do you have a seconder? You are seconded. Honorable members, I now put the question at order number 8. The debate on the motion on public petition on funds spent contrary to the provisions of Article 223 of the Constitution be adjourned to the next available opportunity. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Those of the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Next order. Yes, Majority Leader.
Speaker, beg for indulgence because I know members having come from the recess, and this is part of the business that came towards the end of the last session. Honorable Speaker, just to appraise members, and because a copy of this report by the committee, and you remember, Honorable Speaker, many members have stood in their place in the House and raised concerns on the performance of the Petitions Committee, on how quickly they process petitions. Honorable Speaker, this being one very important report, I want to agree with Honorable Makali Mulu, because these are payments that were made out of Article 223 of the Constitution. An issue, as Honorable Makali Mulu says, that has bedeviled all parliaments, right from the 11th Parliament, Honorable Speaker, and this House has spoken at length on abuse of Article 223. So I really want to beg members to get a copy of this report and interact with it, because this relates to the payments that were made
in the dying hours of the last regime, the telecom haste, the 6 billion telecom haste, Honorable Speaker, and many other payments that were made in the run-up to the last elections are issues that were being addressed by this report. And I really want to beg members to interact with this report so that when this matter comes up for debate again, we can be able to debate with the full knowledge of what the committee found through the interactions with all the stakeholders that they did interact with. And also of note, Honorable Speaker, is for chairs of committees. I can see this matter touches on the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Interior and National Administration. It touches also on the National Treasury, and it will therefore be important for chairs of committees, their vice chairs, and also members who sit in these particular departmental committees to interact with this report before, Honorable Speaker, we make a decision on how to, whether or not to adopt the committee's report, Honorable Speaker. And I wish to thank Honorable Makali Mulu for moving that motion of adjournment. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Order number 9, reports of the Auditor General on the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 9 constituencies in Bungoma County.
Chairperson, Decentralized Funds Accounts Committees. Is that the committee of Mulyungi? Obiri, are you the...
I'm moving on his behalf.
You are the vice chair or a member of the committee?
I'm a member of the committee.
Go ahead.
Honorable Speaker, on behalf of the chairman of the Decentralized Committee, I beg to move that this House adopts the 3rd report of the Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee on its examination of the audited financial statements for the National Government Constituencies Fund for the 9 constituencies in Bungoma County for the financial year 2013, 2014, 2014, 2015, 2015, 2016, laid on the floor of the House on Thursday, the 7th of March of 2024. Honorable Speaker, the Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee is established pursuant to Standing Order 205B and is responsible for the examination of the reports of the Auditor General on the accounts of the NGCDF, NGCDF Board, and National Government Affirmative Action Fund, and the NGAAF Board. Honorable Speaker, the committee examined a total of 27 reports of the Auditor General for Sirisia, Kabuchai, Tongaren, Bumula, Kandui, Webuye East, Webuye West, Kimilili, and Mount Elgon constituencies for the financial year 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016. The specific observations, finding, and recommendation to the audit queries are contained in the report, the committee report. Honorable Speaker, the committee, upon examination of the Auditor General's report for the 9 constituencies, made general observations and recommendations as follows. There are outstanding land issues in the constituencies examined related to transfer, succession, and acquisition of the title deeds for all the land purchased in the review period. The committee recommends, amongst others, that the NGCDF Board should, within 3 months of the adoption of this report, provide guidelines to project management committees on how to deal with purchase of land that is under succession and the land for which transfers are pending. Further, that the board adopts a policy on the procedure of buying land, while at the same time ensuring that NGCDF committee adhere to the provisions of the NGCDF Regulations 2016 on purchase of land or buildings. Mr. Speaker, reallocation and use of emergency funds. Some of the projects funded using emergency funds did not meet the threshold set out in section 62, 6 in brackets 2, and section 8 of the NGCDF Act. The committee therefore recommends that the NGCDF board should ensure that the fund accounts managers comply with provisions of the Act on the use of emergency funds. Pending ongoing projects were common in the constituencies examined owing to the partial allocation of funds for projects. The committee therefore recommends that the NGCDF board should, with immediate effect, discourage the partial allocation of funds to projects and ensure that the projects are completed at most within 2 financial years. Further, that the NGCDF board should develop a realistic policy framework for costing projects for each constituency, which is informed by the cost of materials, transportation, taxes, topography of each constituency, and reports from the relevant government departments. There are inadequate cooperation between the internal auditors, the Office of the Auditor General, and the NGCDF board, leading to delays in providing documents that were subject to examination by the Auditor General for verification at the time of the audit, while some fund account managers were ill-prepared during their appearance before the committee. The committee recommends that the NGCDF board should strengthen the link between the board, the Office of the Auditor General, and the funds managers, particularly regarding the timely response to audit queries. Further, the NGCDF board should also improve on the post-audit correction of irregularities cited in the Auditor General's report, as well as ensure that there is a structured handover process between fund account managers when their term of service comes to an end. The committee recommends that the NGCDF board should ensure that constituency committees employ qualified accountants for their constituency offices beginning from the financial year 2023-2024 within the 6% administrative allocation allocated to NGCDF. The committee also recommends for the continuous capacity building of fund account managers on financial reporting standards, record keeping, and procurement laws and regulations. The Honorable Speaker, I wish to move and request Honorable Ngeleche to second this report.
Jobless. I think the only thing that we need to do is to improve the sector so at least you can have value for them, for whatever the business they're doing. So instead of, put them as criminals, because now in most times if we associate them with criminals, because at times somebody borrows, maybe they take somebody, and then you see the next day this person is either killed or been robbed. So I think despite the many advantages, there are many more disadvantages as a result of the behaviors of the riders. Therefore, I think we need to have one other thing is actually we need to do some kind of testing. The riding test. The riders should undergo some testings and some kind of business regulations. They should be regulated. And they actually, I think this could do it on an annual basis, so at least we can know who is the genuine rider and who is not genuine rider, and then actually the ownerships and all these things, the logbooks. Because these things are very cheap. Some of them are cheap, some of them are just at a cheap price, and the genuine owners are not known, most of them. So I think the whole sector must be reformed, and at least to some senses, put to the riders, And we need to have discipline among the young men and who are riding these things. But however, one other thing is actually the government can also support young men who wants to engage themselves as riders so that they can make some business by giving them cooperative loans and all these things. So this they can be able to, it can become a source of income for them. And they can easily access money for them to buy the motorbikes, so that at least the young men who are not employed, the Gen Zs now who are complaining of lack of employment, can also be engaged on such kind of businesses. With those few remarks, I beg to support, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Ososi Gonfrey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to also support this bill, the Public Transport Motorcycle Regulations Bill 2023 by Honorable Senator Halwale. From the onset, Mr. Speaker, I think this bill is very timely, and I would, from the onset, say I would support it. Mr. Speaker, you know that Boda Boda is now the leading employer of our youth. Almost everywhere in this country, you find so many youth who are jobless, engaged in this kind of trade, because it's the only thing they can do now that we have an employment crisis in this country. Mr. Speaker, though we appreciate that Boda Boda industry has employed our youth, but there are quite a number of challenges. Mr. Speaker, there are challenges on how these young people are paid, because more than 80% of Boda Boda riders do not own those motorcycles. They are owned by other people, probably the teachers in the village or members of parliament like me. They only do the job to ride the motorcycle. We also appreciate that some unscrupulous individuals have come up with companies to try and milk from these youth. And maybe in my debate on this, I would encourage the owner, Senator Halwale, to also bring up that issue. We have a number of companies which pretend to be giving loans to the Boda Boda riders, give them loans, but a few months before the completion of those loans, you find that the motorcycle has been taken away when those riders have just completed nearly 80% of the payment. So that has been a major problem. And I have sat in this house when Senator Cheregei has brought that matter before this house. This is a big problem. Mr. Speaker, we also have to appreciate a number of our youth have been killed through accidents on these motorcycles. A number of our youth have been injured as a result of motorcycles. And even passengers have been injured. In our various counties, we have attended so many funerals of border-related accidents. And something needed to be done on this. And I want to congratulate my colleague Halwale for coming up with this particular bill, which when I read it, I think it is going to address the problem that we have. We need to make Boda Boda industry a meaningful employment industry, not an industry that is going to take advantage of our youth, not an industry that is going to cause death, injuries, and even crime. So this bill addresses all those challenges, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Just like Senator Busia said, there are a few areas maybe would need to consider amendments. And one of the areas is on clause 5, which talks about the board. The board in its composition, you don't see the representation of border owners and riders. Is largely composed of county officials. So I would propose that we have representation of the riders and the owners. Mr. Speaker, whereas I support the idea of the board, but then this also exposes something. And this something is that many of us have been asking, what is the use of NTSA on matters of managing accidents in this country and managing transport in this country? Mr. Speaker, NTSA has failed. They have completely failed. They should have been at the forefront of helping this country deal with the problem of border industry in this country, especially on licensing, on safety and all that. But NTSA has failed. They have failed borders, they have failed on public transport, and basically that body is not serving the purpose that it was established to serve. So I support the creation of this body, but at the same time, Mr. Speaker, the bill needs to tell how this body is going to be financed. It is silent on that. Where is the money going to run this board going to come from? So that we don't have a scenario where the board now becomes an institution that is going to fine our borders, that is going to introduce extraneous levies to borders and make the industry even more expensive to run and send many of our youth out of employment. So that aspect of how it is going to be financed must be very clear in the bill so that they don't run rogue and start introducing unreasonable levies and charges to our borders. Mr. Speaker, the issue, the relationship between the owner and the rider, this bill has really gave a reflection on that. But I think on the issue of employment, that is clause 14, where it says every owner of a motorcycle who engages the services of a rider shall enter into a written employment contract with the rider. And then it goes on to specify what is going to be contained in the employment agreement. This is one area that, Mr. Speaker, has to be looked at very keenly so that to make it easy for the owners of motorcycle to continue operating in this industry so that the salary or any other benefits that accrue to the rider are manageable. Because if we leave it hanging like that, Mr. Speaker, the danger is that if you go to Employment Act, the terms under Employment Act may be difficult for most of these owners to comply. Issues of medical, issues of minimum wage, issues of insurance and all that. So I think this is one area that we need to look at so that we don't discourage investment in this sector. We need to encourage investment in this sector, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the bill also talks about motorcycle ambulances. Motorcycle ambulances that are going to be equipped with medical equipment and supplies. Mr. Speaker, this is going to be very useful, especially in rural areas where we have a problem with the road network, where we have a problem with accessibility, and still our people still need to access medical care. So I fully support that. This is actually an innovation. This is a proposal that we'll be looking forward to see how it's going to work so that our people who are sick, elderly people in the villages, will have access to medical ambulances through these motorcycles. Mr. Speaker, I have seen also the bill also talks about three-legged motorcycle. I think this is tuk-tuk. And I wanted to remind Senator Cherigay that indeed the bill has captured tuk-tuk. The bill also has talked about delivery, borders. The borders that deliver things like food or goods and all that, and how these borders are going to be managed. They should not be used for any other purposes for which they are designated. They will strictly be used for deliveries. So all in all, Mr. Speaker, I think this is a wonderful bill. All we need to look is to look for maybe a few areas which we need to enhance, particularly on the issue of financing and the issue of ensuring that this bill will not lead to additional financial burden to the owners and to the riders, so that this business should be encouraged. This business should not be discouraged due to cost. The other thing, Mr. Speaker, is inspection of motorcycles, borders. This is one area that the police in our counties have, on numerous occasions, harassed our youth who the only crime is to own a border and operate a border. Harassment of border is on the increase, Mr. Speaker. I think something has to be done. And this bill has to be very clear that inspection of motorcycles should not lead to harassment. Because if you open up again that aspect of inspection, there are some police officers who will take advantage of that, and they use that to extort money from the poor borders. They use that to intimidate the borders and harass them. So the issue of harassment of our borders has to be addressed in this bill as well, so that the borders have to comply with the law on matters of safety, having a helmet, having all the other accessories they need to have, but unnecessary harassment by police must be stopped, and this bill, I think, has to talk about that. And the border owners and riders must have a recourse where there is unjustifiable harassment by the police. Mr. Speaker, all in all, I want to say that this bill covers almost all the challenges that we face in this border industry. Issues of drugs movement here and there have been addressed in Clause 20. The issues of offenses have been addressed, and I think with the further amendments, particularly on the issue of Clause 26, that talks about a fee of 100,000 shillings for an offense committed by border. I think 100,000 shillings is too high for our youth in the village who are doing this industry. So that figure should be scaled down so that the offenders have a responsibility to pay for their offenses, but at the same time, the amount should be manageable so that we do not discourage our unemployed youth from earning their living through this border. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I want to support this bill with amendments and encourage members to also support this bill with amendments. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Senator Ososi, since you have not tabled any amendments, your statement might not be accurate. Maybe unless you propose, yeah, maybe you intend to make the amendments. Okay. Senator Sheikh Mariam Omar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, first, I appreciate and thanks to Senator Boni to bring up with this bill, which one way or another, it will solve most of the challenges of the border rider. Mr. Speaker, when in the bill there is a board, on that board, composition of the board, as other senators also highlighted, there must be a border association, because currently we have a border associations. So Senator Boni, so take note so that at least border associations must be included. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to these board registrations, this will also tell us the number of border, the cycle in counties, because I can see there is a cross-county recognition, which is a very good proposal, because to know how many borders in each counties. Mr. Speaker, on this registration of motorcycle by board of directors, board member, there must be also penalties when it comes to registrations, because sometimes they don't even see the requirements, what is required. Maybe the board member can register anyone. So on what scenario we can maybe the registration of that motorcycle has not been correctly done. So there must be also, take note on that one, the penalties to the members of the board of directors, board members who make registration without checking the requirement. There is a registration of all the members, all the registration of riders also register with a cooperative society. In fact, I'm also the sponsor of cooperative society. In fact, you give me a clue, I can put as an amendment to take care of border. On the training, Mr. Speaker, we must have a unique license for the motorcycle, which must be different from other transports. On sitting position, as Senator Busia, I think there is a clause which said exemption disability. So you have to include disability and women so that it can cater some culture, because I cannot sit the way other people are seated. So you have to take care of that position. Mr. Speaker, the private and some borders are for private and some are for commercial. So when you stand at the roadside, you wanted transport, it must be seen that this coming person is, border coming is for private and commercial. So we must have a unique differentiation between the private and commercial motorcycle. When it comes to also offenses of 100,000, you have to also differentiate the private and the commercial one, so that the private one can pay that 100,000, but for others, riders, they cannot. So you have to differentiate also that one. A requirement of the road. Mr. Speaker, but there, these cycles, they have simplified the work of many of the Kenyans. So we have to have a private path in one side so that they have a section for different from the four-wheel drivers. And also maybe we have to restrict when giving contracts to the contractors, they must have for maybe an engineer who's doing inspections must also inspect that there is a road as a scope in the BQ that must be done for motorcycle. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of border for ambulance, in fact, that is what we are using on our area, because we need each counties, each health sectors must have 2 or 3 as an emergency ambulance, so that at least people can access the health sector at the right time when they need. Mr. Speaker, the other one is when you are registration of this motorcycle, maybe the senator can take note on that. Sometimes they register, the valuation must be there. Because sometimes somebody can come and say, register for me this, and at the end of the day, the motorcycle is worn out. It is unrepairable. So it must be some inspections and valuation must be done. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I support with amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Senator Professor Margaret Kamar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this bill. First, may I start by congratulating our colleague, Senator Boni Alwale, for coming up with a very beautiful piece of legislation. Mr. Speaker, for those of us who have traveled to Rwanda, we are seeing this as a very important step in the right direction. In Rwanda, you don't see people, more than one person being a passenger in a border. In fact, the borders are so organized that when we were there for the sports, we kept asking ourselves, what happened to us? How do we introduce motorbikes and confuse the road with the same? So I want to congratulate our colleague for coming up with this bill, and I support it. A few areas, Mr. Speaker, that I would like to request Senator Halwale to look at. In Section 5F and G, he is talking of membership to the board, and he's talking of 4 persons appointed by the county executive member responsible for transport, and in AG, it is 2 members appointed by the county executive committee member responsible for transport to represent groups with special interests. My assumption, Mr. Speaker, is that Section 9 is what is referring to members of SACCOs, and maybe the new association that has been introduced by some members. The improvement I wanted to request him to look into is that the executive member should not be appointing on behalf of the representative groups. We are in a stage in this country where public participation is very good and representation is done by the groups themselves. So it may be necessary for him to tweak that a little bit so that we actually have the representative groups appointing members to this board, because this board is going to be the driving force. In fact, I was personally impressed by this law because it is taking the border business to the county. And it is very important that the counties take responsibility for this because of the proximity of the activities of borders. So my suggestion is that first, this representation of groups be a result of an election or selection by the groups themselves, be it the owners or the riders. But so that's one thing I want to suggest. Number two, that actually he switches again between F and G so that we have only two appointees to come from the CEC in F and 4 to come from the representative groups. Because it is very important when we are talking of regulating a system to have more representatives of the actors. So I'm bringing that in, Mr. Speaker, at this point of suggestion, but I note what you have said to a colleague earlier, that if we want to introduce as amendments, we will introduce. But I want him to think through so that when we come back with amendments, then it works well. I am so impressed with the registration of borders and their membership being within a body that can be felt and that can be seen. Mr. Speaker, I don't think there's any of us who has not attended a funeral of somebody who has died because of border. It is therefore very important that we consider this, because it is the transport that is most commonly used. It is the transport that reaches every corner of our country. Mr. Speaker, the other one that I want to join colleagues that have raised is 13(2)B, where is introducing persons with disabilities to be exempted from the requirements of sitting astride. I want to persuade our senator that that should be persons with disabilities and women, because when the law takes effect and we have only one passenger in a border, it will be possible to sit even facing one direction. So I would like to persuade that that could even come from him himself, so that we reduce on our amendments, so he can have his own amendments coming in. That, to me, would really make a lot of sense. The one question that I have, which I think, again, Senator Alwale should think about, is 18(3). 18, actually, the whole of 18. Motorcycle ambulances. I have been trying to imagine how an ambulance, a motorcycle can be an ambulance. I know we are using it now because there is nothing else. But we must force our governors to have ambulances equitably distributed in a county. If we allow these border ambulances, Mr. Speaker, we will make it so easy for governors to ignore very rural areas in two ways: provision of the ambulance and provision of roads. Because the reason our people are using borders now for ambulances is because there are no roads. They are using very narrow paths to take people to hospital. We know that in some areas, you even have to carry people literally using a sack and 4 men to carry a patient to the main road. I think we should really ask governors to take responsibility of our health. Health is a right in our constitution. Health is a right that should cover everybody, and we should not give them an excuse to have any other form of ambulance. They should give that ambulance because that is what everybody pays taxes for. Equity and equality when it comes to health, Mr. Speaker, should not degenerate to anything else. Finally, Mr. Speaker, Article 22 on insurance. I'm reading that and I'm asking myself, is this insurance covering death compensation or injury compensation? The line is very attractive that every owner of the motorcycle shall have, at the minimum, a motor commercial public service insurance cover. It is my hope that the arrival of an insurance will discourage careless driving of these motorcycles. And the only way we can do that is when we make sure that actually there is compensation. Because in most cases, people who have died out of accidents of motorcycles or who have been injured out of motorcycle accidents have been left on their own. In fact, they part ways with the motorbike on the road. The motorbike owner is normally always different from the motorbike rider. So the motorbike rider goes to take care of his own injuries, and any accident victim does not get any assistance anywhere. So I persuade again our colleague to think through how this motorcycle insurance can take care of injuries and take care of death compensation in a way to deter careless driving and to stop owners from hiring careless riders. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I once more congratulate our colleague, Senator Adwale, and really mention that this is a bill that is long overdue. It will bring order to our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Professor. Next is Senator Fomranga Jonyutu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say that I support this bill, very well thought out by our colleague and senior Senator Boni Halwale, Mr. Speaker, because border has become a very important sector in our economy, Mr. Speaker. We have very many young men and sometimes women that are employed in this particular sector, Mr. Speaker, whether owning the bikes or having been engaged by people who can be able to invest in the bikes, Mr. Speaker. And so this is an important sector that needs regulation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, border, apart from employing many young men and women, is an occurrence that has also made accessibility to some interior places easy, Mr. Speaker. There are places that were very hard to access before borders came around. And so it's important that we regulate this particular sector, and I see this bill as one that is going to help very much in this particular matter, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have been having very many deaths from border accidents, Mr. Speaker. And some of us have even lost our relatives from border accidents, Mr. Speaker. And one thing that has been a denominator in most of these deaths, Mr. Speaker, is a failure by the border users, both the riders and their passengers, Mr. Speaker, to wear helmets, because sometimes they are not provided by the riders, Mr. Speaker. And so I am excited about section 10 of this particular bill, Mr. Speaker, where we are talking about, especially two, where Senator Halwale has talked about this board that will ensure that our border riders undergo safe and defensive riding techniques, Mr. Speaker, in order for them to prevent these deaths. Some of them do not even understand the risks that are involved in riding without their helmets on, Mr. Speaker. And like Professor Kamala has said, going to Rwanda, Kigali, Mr. Speaker, then you get challenged as a Kenyan, especially when you see that any border rider there and their passengers properly fit their helmets, and that none of the motorcycles, Mr. Speaker, will ferry more than one passenger. It's something that we should borrow, and this is something that this bill has really addressed, Mr. Speaker, through these regulations. Mr. Speaker, another thing that is coming out very well in this bill, and that's why I support it, is the idea of regulating this particular sector. Because as we speak, we have no regulation in this particular sector, Mr. Speaker. You will see border actually sometimes riding on the opposite side of the road because there is no regulation in the full glare of traffic police officers. And so regulation, Mr. Speaker, because we do not want a country that is lawless, a country where we have a big sector that is not regulated. And so I'm very excited about especially section also 6B, where this board is supposed to, Mr. Speaker, to oversee that all border riders are registered and licensed, so that we can also know who is it that is actually operating a border. Who is it that is actually riding these borders? Because without this particular regulation, then crime can also be committed without us knowing exactly who did what, Mr. Speaker. One other thing that is very important in the same section 6 is developing and implementing programs to promote road safety, including training and education of riders and passengers. Mr. Speaker, these young men and women sometimes just leave secondary school or finish their secondary school studies. And because they know how to ride a bicycle, they only need some instruction of about 30 minutes and they become riders because of course they can balance on the motorcycle. And the following day, they are scouting for passengers, Mr. Speaker. So I think they need to be trained as the bill suggests and proposes, trained also on safety, their own safety, the safety of their passengers. Because sometimes they are ignorant, they are innocent but ignorant, Mr. Speaker. And so this is something that is very progressive. Going, Mr. Speaker, to number 8, Mr. Speaker, I'm also excited about the fact, actually not number 8, but number 9, the fact that they will be required by this board to register in a savings and credit society. Because we do not want our young people to just go out there, make some money, spend all of it in the evening, and at the end of the day, have no saving. Because we do not want to have somebody riding a border up to when they're 70. And Mr. Speaker, where I come from, they say that old age feeds on youth. So because these operators are young, they need also to develop a culture, and I believe this particular provision will encourage them to develop a culture of saving so that they can also be able to get credit. So that if I'm riding somebody's border today as a hired rider, that if I'm able to make some savings, I can also be able to get credit, and as a first step, be able to, of course, acquire my own border so that tomorrow I'll also be self-employed and I can also create employment for somebody else. And so that is something that is very progressive, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the requirement that before you are allowed to operate a motorcycle, that you have to complete a training course approved by the board. It's also very good, very important. Because, Mr. Speaker, this is an engine-driven cycle. We cannot continue having, and some of them move at speeds of 100 kilometers per hour. That is risky for somebody who has not been trained. It is risky for the rider. It is risky for the passenger, Mr. Speaker. And these are some of the things that this bill is bringing a remedy to. And we must support this particular bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have been having very many problems also with passengers. Because, and I like this bill because it is also making a passenger responsible of their own safety and the safety of others by requiring them, Mr. Speaker, in section 13, requiring the responsibility of a passenger that one, they must wear a helmet and wear a reflective jacket. When driving at night, Mr. Speaker, or being driven, sometimes you realize there was just there is a motorcycle just when you are about to hit them, because they do not wear reflective jackets, some of them. The rear lights are off and or not operational at all. And so visibility becomes very poor. And I also like the section that requires them, again, without mixing up matters, that requires them, the riders, to also have the headlight on all the time when they are using the roads, Mr. Speaker. So the fact that we are making the passengers responsible by requiring them to wear protective gear and not to board a motorcycle that has already been boarded by another customer, another passenger, Mr. Speaker, I think Senator Halwale had really observed what happens in his county and other counties, because this is a problem that cuts across all the counties of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, and we must make both the rider and the passenger responsible, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the safety of other road users. Something caught my eye under 17A, that the riders will not be allowed to carry a load whose width projects more than 15 centimeters beyond the double edge end, the outside end of the handlebars. Mr. Speaker, some of these riders have been ferrying loads that are very wide, occupying a whole lane sometimes. You do not know how to overtake them. And if you get to hit that particular load, Mr. Speaker, sometimes, of course, the vehicle will get a problem. Mr. Speaker, the rider will also get a problem. And so this is something that I thought should really be supported. Mr. Speaker, I also noted that under 17.2, we are trying to protect our roads under this bill. Because most of the border riders, especially those ferrying goods, Mr. Speaker, especially loads, like you can talk about building bars, Mr. Speaker. They drag them along the tarmac. And this makes our roads get destroyed, Mr. Speaker. And we know that, of course, road construction is a very expensive thing. And so that is something very, very, very important, so that we protect our roads and we also protect the riders. Because when they drag this particular load, it means that they are also not safe, because, of course, stability of the cycle, the motorcycle, that is a two-wheeled motorcycle, Mr. Speaker, then becomes greatly compromised by dragging this particular, loads along the road. I hope I got it right. You know where I come from, where you have a load and a road, you could get problems with R and L, Mr. Speaker, especially when you come from where I come from, and I know you also don't come from very, very far from there, Mr. Speaker. So that is also very important. Insurance cover under Section 22, Mr. Speaker. Most of the people that have had accidents, motorcycle accidents, sometimes suffering very great harm to their bodies, grievous harm, they have no recourse. They have to meet their medical bills If you lose your leg, you just lose it. Nobody will compensate you because most of these riders do not operate, do not actually have an insurance cover on their bikes. But Mr. Speaker, as we require our boda riders to have an insurance cover for every other motorcycle that is on the road, we must also consider the rates of buying or of paying for a cover, Mr. Speaker, because the business is not that profitable. So what then should be done, although we'll be bringing amendments to this bill, what then should be done, Mr. Speaker? I'm of the view that the government, because every government gives incentives to business people, that the government chips in. We can even actually have an insurance agency partly or wholly owned by the government, so that we can charge these boda riders an amount or a figure that they can be able to afford, and whatever is over and above the value of the cover, then it is made by the government, Mr. Speaker, as an incentive to this particular sector that has employed so many of our youths, Mr. Speaker. So there are very many benefits in this bill, but we need also to rethink about the offenses and penalties. And we may not want to allow them to break the law, but I think we may need to revise some figures. If you go to 26.2, then there is a provision that if you are found liable to a particular offense, then you are, penalized 100,000 Kenya shillings, Mr. Speaker, which may not be affordable. So, Mr. Speaker, I think we may need to revise some of these figures downwards, even as we encourage our young men and women who are riding bodas to be law-abiding, Mr. Speaker, but we must charge them penalties that can be afforded. That is why if you walk in almost every police station in this country, you are going to find loads and loads of boda or piki-pikis parked there because our young men and women are not able to meet the requirements in law that they need to make in order for their arrested or their psychos that have been held in police stations released. So I think we should revise that. But I am also very excited, before I conclude, Mr. Speaker, about the ganging. This bill has something under 2026 that they will not be allowed to gang, especially when there is an accident, because it has become a very serious problem, Mr. Speaker. And I'm concluding that when there is an accident between a motorcycle and a vehicle, whether or not the rider was the one on the wrong, then they gang up and harass motorists. Such are the things that actually should not be encouraged. And Mr. Speaker, I support this bill in totality with some amendments that members may bring. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that particular opportunity.
Thank you. Next is Senator Mogeni Herrick Okong.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to begin by thanking the Senator of Kakamega for the interest he has shown in bringing a bill that addresses concerns of boda riders, who, Mr. Speaker, make a huge contribution to our economy. And we thank our former president, late Mzee Mwai Kibaki, who in 2008 zero-rated motorcycles, and that opened the market. I think we now have Senator Kalwale, I believe more than 2 million motorcycles in this country. And there's no doubt that they are making a very huge contribution to our economy. Every time they fuel, Mr. Speaker, that is tax to the government. And there are many counties that also tax boda. So they are making a huge contribution to the bodas. I don't know about your county, Mr. Speaker, but I know where I come from, the county of Nyamira. I have so many people who have gone to school to a degree level. I have so many boda riders who have qualified as teachers. I even have picked one or two and encouraged them to apply for teaching jobs, and they have been successful. So our sons who are in boda business, I need, because we have no jobs, so we also need to be very fair and kind to them. So as we pass this regulation, Mr. Speaker, my first concern is that we should not pass a law that will again put a heavy burden on the borders. I've looked at the roads, Mr. Speaker. You sympathize with these young children of ours. They ride their motorcycles in dusty roads from morning to evening, Mr. Speaker. When it rains, they still want to continue doing their business because they have to fend for their families. At times, they are called in the wee hours of the night to pick passengers. They say yes because they are trying to fend for their families. So they work under very, very difficult conditions. And I wish the government can put in place mechanisms of upgrading our roads to bitumen standards so that these very enterprising cadre of Kenyans can work in an environment that is, puts a human face to the business. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I want to support this bill, but with a number of amendments. I want to persuade Senator Halwale to listen to my concerns on this bill. The first concern, Mr. Speaker, is that if we create this board in Section 5, the way it is, it has a heavy presence of county government, and it's huge, 11 members, okay? You are saying the chairperson should be appointed by the county governor. Personally, I'll propose that we have a competitive process of picking a chair through the county public service board. There's nothing so special that a governor should appoint a chairman. Let it be competitive. Let those who have an interest in that sector be allowed to apply in a competitive process to the county public service board. In terms of representatives from the county executive committee membership, you have proposed we put a representative from, a CC member for transport, CC member finance, you have put there Attorney General, and then you go to F and again propose 4 persons appointed by the county executive committee member responsible for matters relating to transport. I'll persuade that we consider making a proposal to amend these 4F to have representative from the sub-counties. If in Kakamega you have 12, let each sub-county elect 1 person. And we have tried issues of elections. In the Judicial Service Commission, every representative is elected. The only ones who sit in JSC without being subjected to an election are those who are there by virtue of their offices. Chief Justice, Attorney General, and the likes. But the rest, even if it's Supreme Court, they elect their representative. Court of Appeal, they elect their representative. Magistrates, they elect their representative. So that we remove this thing of throwing everything to the county. This bill is like self-regulating. Law Society of Kenya does self-regulation, and it does it so well. If you misbehave, lawyers are able to strike you off the roll. And I think if you give power to the border sector, they can ably regulate themselves. Secondly, having said that about the board, secondly, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of mitigating costs on licenses. Mr. Speaker, sir, some of these border riders come from very poor families. Personally, I've helped a few to register and get a driving license because they come from very disadvantaged families. These are people from our counties, we know them. We know their families. I'd rather that we push this burden to the government. There's a time, Mr. Speaker, when CDF, and I'm privileged to have you on the chair because you have been a former member of parliament. There's a time CDF used to have a budget to assist border borders get their licenses. Let the government take that burden. Senator Alwale, every day a border walks into a petrol station, they fuel 1 liter. The government takes 82 shillings as tax. So why can't the government also set aside a fund to train and pay for their licenses? That can be done through NTSA, because we should also appreciate the contribution that these border riders are making to the economy, other than locking so many of them from the industry because they are not able to get these licenses. And you know, Mr. Speaker, remember, if you put so many offenses, you are creating an avenue for corruption through the police. If you engage these guys, some of them call us. They are riding, they get arrested, they are told if you don't have a helmet, the fine is 5,000. Policeman will tell you, toa 500. Why can't you make it easy? Because we want to eliminate corruption. Make the fine affordable. Charge this guy 500 shillings. So that money goes to the government as a fine. When you make it so high, the policeman will take the easier option. Give me 500, the fine is 5,000. Failure to display an insurance sticker, the penalty is 10,000. Tell me, Senator Kalwale, through you, Mr. Speaker, sir, there is no border who will walk into a court of law and pay a fine of 10,000. So they will opt to give a bribe to the police. Let's make the penalties to be reasonable. You know, if you are found drunk and riding a motorcycle, they will fine you 60,000. They can't afford it. So I'll propose that we ride on this bill and create fines that can be affordable. Let's also appreciate that the highest you can make as an owner of a motorcycle is between 500 to 1,000 shillings a day. So let's also have fines that are fairly reasonable. 3, Mr. Speaker, I've seen a lot of reforms on how we conduct elections. This idea of saying you come up with elections and you throw it to anybody, any Tom, Dick, and Harry, to conduct elections for borders, is not working. I will be persuading the mover that I bring in an amendment to have the elections of the border industry be conducted by IEBC. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Speaker, you know that the tea elections directors were conducted by IEBC. I'm moving a motion here to also ask that elections for trade unions should be supervised by IEBC, so that we have people who have direct mandates from people in that sector. You allow, other people out there who are not accountable to conduct elections, you'll get manipulation. People will also come in to interfere, and you get leaders who maybe don't have the confidence of the membership. So let's use this opportunity to put in place a credible process of carrying out elections so that there can now be proper self-regulation. In the Law Society of Kenya, Senator Mungatana will tell you, our elections are conducted by IEBC. That's why you don't see lawyers going to court filing petitions, because it's credible, it enjoys the confidence of the membership. I'm looking forward to a day when my good friend, Secretary General of KOTU, Francis Atwoli, will also be elected in a process that is overseen by IEBC, so that the concept of, it is there in Chapter 6. If you are subject to an election, the Constitution says you should be elected in a transparent electoral process, but by secret ballot. That's what the Constitution says. We don't want those things of 88 of lining up. Then the issue of SACCOs. SACCOs are good, but we need a mechanism where maybe counties, we give counties a lot of money. This money is eaten. Let's make an obligation here that counties will give seed money to our SACCOs. Governors get a lot of money. A lot of it goes to Mandazi and Kunywa Chai. Put some austerity measures. We say each county will put aside some seed money to jumpstart counties. I mean SACCOs. Why did we create counties if they cannot benefit our people? Traffic, policemen. In a roadblock near my home in Metamayo, Mr. Speaker, a police officer threw spikes on a boda cyclist. This guy hit the spikes at high speed, rolled, he died. He died. I mean, we now have motorcycles with registered number plates, Mr. Speaker. A traffic offense is not a life and death issue. If this guy is committing a traffic offense, failing to stop, Mr. Speaker, you don't throw a spike and cause a life. The way PLO says, don't respond to a mosquito bite with a hammer, Mr. Speaker. I mean, the best you should do is take the registration number. I mean, these motorcycles are registered, and there is now a proposal here to ensure that all of them are registered in a SACCO. Just take the registration number, go after the guy. But causing a life, Mr. Speaker, by throwing a spike, I don't think that is right. We are being extremely inhuman as a country. As I get towards conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I've looked at the number of offenses that have been created in this act. I am of the view that there are too many. The offenses are too many. And the fine, Mr. Speaker, you can't fine a boda 100,000 shillings. That is a fine that should be meted out to an honorable member of parliament. It's 10% of their salary. But putting it at 100,000, Mr. Speaker, is too much. Let us have a reasonable fine. You know, at times you can go to London and you find that committing an offense is £1,000. But when you look at the income of the victim or the culprit, he's earning over 10,000. It's called what? Great British Pound. When you convert, that's over $1 million. That is reasonable, saying they pay 100,000. But now for this economy, a boda guy who is making 800 shillings a day or 500, and then you tell him if you commit an offense here, you pay a fine of 100,000. That's unaffordable. And that's how we create avenues for policemen to collect money. I don't know whether you have a finance bill in our respective counties, but in my county, where I come from, Mr. Speaker, when I joined the Senate, bodas used to pay 50 shillings as a sticker, monthly sticker. Then it went to 100. Last financial year, the finance bill, it was pushed to 300 shillings a month. Now, these guys are paying 300 for a sticker. They are going to pay money for their license. They have to get money for insurance. You are telling them to also have employment contract. Will that be sustainable in that industry? And you know what that entails? Employment Act, minimum salary is there. The benefits that accompany a contract, that is too much. I'll propose if there is a way we can standardize the stickers, the fee that bodas pay for monthly stickers. 300, in my own estimation, is on their side. If you put it at 100 shillings, it means in a month, in a year, you are paying 1,200. That's what we used to pay for our motor vehicle licenses, Mr. Speaker. That's reasonable. So I would propose that if there is a way we can put a ceiling here, that a county will not pass a finance bill that will put an unnecessary burden on our border riders. Because you have seen what heavy taxation can do to these young guys who are trying to make a living out there. You saw what the passage of Finance Bill 2025 did to us as a country. So let us also be seen as a Senate that we care for these border riders. Put a ceiling. You don't charge anybody more than 100 shillings per month. Computed to annually, it is 1,200. That's enough for counties to collect revenue from our border riders. On employment contracts, let's leave that to be regulated by the market. People can agree between the owner of the border and the rider. If you make it too prescriptive, you may achieve a different result where employers will shy off from engaging these young guys. So let's try to have a balance between the two. But in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, sir, it's a good initiative by Senator Galwale. If we improve it, make some amendments, lessen the burden from the border riders, put some obligation on national government and county government, will be seen to be caring for our border riders, who are our supporters, most of us, and who are our children back home, our friends. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Thank you. Senator Boni Karori, there are a lot of recommendations on this bill. Maybe we'll encourage our colleagues to come up with amendments. You discuss them so that you don't light a new bill. So next is Senator Wambua Heno, Deputy Minority Leader.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want from the onset to begin by thanking Senator Boni Alwale for coming up with the Public Transport Motorcycle Regulation Bill 2023. The Speaker, if Senator Chimera would just take his seat, Senator Alwale would benefit from wisdom from Kitui. The Speaker, I begin by saying that I support the bill. And I agree that a time has come that this industry will need to be regulated. But Mr. Speaker, before I go into the specifics of the bill, I want to draw the attention of Senator Boni Alwale, and of course the attention of the entire House, that perhaps the border industry is probably and arguably the only growth sector in this country. Is the only sector that is guaranteeing jobs, be they casual or otherwise, to the greatest number of our young people. It is absorbing a lot of young people. And for that reason, every legislation that we pass, either in this House or in any legislative assembly, even in the counties, must be a law that is a lot more facilitative than restrictive. It should be a law that facilitates the growth of the sector. It should be a law that creates avenues for expansion and growth of the sector. And having said that, Mr. Speaker, I will not miss this opportunity to thank former President, late Mwai Kibaki, for thinking through this very, very important sector and opening up our borders for the importation of motorcycles. The Speaker, were it not for the initiative of the former president, then I wouldn't know what we'll be doing with the millions, because there's actually millions of young people who are now engaged in that sector. And so for us, we should carry that vision of the former president forward in whatever legislation that we are going to come up with. And so let me just mention a few things on this bill by our brother, Senator Boni. First, when it comes to the issue of the regulation of the motorcycles, I have heard my colleagues speak to this, so I will not spend a lot of time on it. At some point, when we go into the third reading, Senator Boni, we may want to engage a lot more on this matter of the board, the County Motorcycle Transport and Safety Board. Engage and discuss and agree on two issues. One, the composition of the board, and two, the functions of the board. I say this because, as a Speaker, when you look at the composition of the board as proposed in this bill, to me, actually, it appears like a department of the county governments. It is an extension of the executive of the county governments. And yet, this is private business. This is private business. And when the operators or in this private business encounter challenges, they should be approaching the executive in their counties for a resolution of the challenges that they face. Now, if the board is in itself an extension of the executive in the counties, then when there are challenges, it would be very difficult for the counties to approach themselves, the county executives, to approach themselves to resolve those challenges. Looking at this, I would have wanted to see the involvement of the riders themselves. They have something, they have a voice in their business, in their job, with their job. There must be a representation of the riders themselves in this board. There will be need for a representation of the owners, because it is not all the time that the riders are the owners, but there are people who have invested in this business. They have an opinion in how the board and the business and the sector should be regulated. There will be need to deal with manufacturers of these motorcycles. They need to be on the board for purposes of dealing with quality and safety issues of the machines, the motorcycles themselves. And then, of course, the dealers, the people that offer these bicycles, motorcycles to the owners and the riders, so that it's a holistic board that is not an extension of the executive of county governments. Now, when it comes to functions of the board, then we should run away, Senator Boni, from the temptation to be generic in the creation of the functions of the board. As I said, let us first admit and agree that this is a unique sector. It's a growth sector for us. And so the functions that we assign the board must be specific to the operations of the motorcycles. I have in mind, and I see you've captured a bit of that, I have in mind an obligation being placed on the boards to ensure that there is sufficient parking lots. I see there's a mention of that. Parking lots. Everywhere the border borders are operating from. I would want to see a situation where we have lanes. And this becomes an obligation on the board to ensure that we have lanes that are dedicated lanes in towns for border borders. You don't want border borders to be fighting for space with PSVs and private cars and human traffic. Why can't we designate special lanes for these border riders in view of the fact that this sector can only grow, can only expand. So an investment in making their operations better and more and safer, no matter how much that is going to cost, is not an investment in vain. So those are things that we can create an obligation on the boards. But then about the boards again, the bill is silent on the funding of the board. Where will the board get its money from? And that's where the problem begins. Because then if we leave it open-ended, now these boards will start imposing fines on the riders and owners to generate their operating capital. We need a think through because all of us in the Senate have border riders and owners in our counties in their hundreds of thousands to agree on what will be the source of funding for the board, so that the boards are also enjoy a level of autonomy in their operations. Now, going down to clause 6 of the bill, I see that clause 6 to clause 7. Clause 7. Clause 7. It says that no person shall use a motorcycle for commercial purposes in a county unless it is registered in accordance with this act. Now, there's a small challenge there. You know, when we have that conversation, Senator Boni, we have then to define, either in this bill or through a common understanding, what is commercial purpose? Where does it begin? Where does it end? Because I see in this bill, when you read through it, there are two levels of commercial engagements. In this bill, there is the passenger and the load. Yeah? But then the question that I'll ask myself is, if I buy a motorcycle that I'm using to do my own private transportation, going to church, whatever that I'm doing, and then occasionally I'm also using that motorcycle when I have sufficient eggs at home to carry them to the market. Is that a commercial function? When I go to the market, in Kabati market where I come from, you have 2 market days on Monday and Thursday. So I've ridden my bike to Kabati and I bought a few things, maybe I also run a small kiosk at home, and on Friday then I carry a box or 2 of biscuits and sweets to sell in my kiosk. It's a commercial function. So we have to define commercial properly so that there is clear understanding. You can own a motorcycle, but not for commercial purposes. And that now will will begin to bring clarity, especially on the part of enforcement officers. That when, on the day that they meet Senator Wambua riding his motorbike from Kabati to Kalimba, and he is carrying, a crate of soda or something, they would not ask me for the commercial license of the motorcycle. Yeah? So that needs to be clearly defined. Again, that clause 7, it talks about a prescribed fee. Yeah? An application for registration shall be made to the board in the prescribed form and shall be accompanied by the prescribed fee. Now, Speaker, the Senator from Meru, no, not Speaker now, no, it's Senator Meru. Now you have another Speaker. So the Speaker, so clause 7.3. Senator Boni, you are talking about a prescribed form and a prescribed fee. But I think you are leaving that to the board to determine. Now, there is a danger there. You see, later on in the bill, and this bill should also begin to speak to itself. Later on in the bill, you are suggesting, or you're proposing, that if a boda is registered in Kitui, then it can operate in Kakamega. That's what you're saying, which is a good thing. But then the prescription, the prescribed form for registration of the boda in Kitui, that form is essentially and materially different from the form that is prescribed in Kakamega. Even the fee that the board in Kitui has set and prescribed is essentially and materially different from the prescribed fee in Kakamega. So how do we navigate that? How do we navigate that to create uniformity in the form, the prescribed form and the prescribed fee? My proposal would be, when we get to the amendments, why can't we have a schedule here and prescribe the registration form and the registration fee, so that then we don't have different counties prescribing different things for the operators. In that case, then the principle will hold that what I paid in Kitui is the same amount of money that was paid in Kakamega, both for registration and for the certification. That way, then we will create better harmony. So, and that is carried through a number of clauses, 8, 9. Now, this clause 9, there is also need for clarity. 9.2, that each, actually it begins 9.1 and 2. 9.1 is the one that lays the basis for 2. So 1 is, it talks about registration, verification, the registration details of the rider. No, a person who owns or operates a motorcycle for commercial purposes shall register with the savings and cooperative societies. Now, Senator Boni, you know, I know we have circles for matatus. What I'm not sure is whether the same spirit that is in the circles for matatus or the PSVs is the same spirit of savings as we know cooperatives to do. Because the nature of cooperative societies that we have, or the cooperative movement that we have, is pulling together resources to grow the society, but so that even members can go back to that society and get some loans and grow their businesses or do their savings, and at some point then they can also liquidate their savings. Now, I don't know whether that is the nature of circles that you have in mind in this bill, because my understanding then of the PSV circles is not necessarily for members to be able to go and get loans or liquidate their savings at some point, but in most cases to ensure that there is ease of regulation and to ensure that if a member of the circle is on the wrong, then the others take collective responsibility and push for compliance for every member.
First of all, my name is Dennis Mwanzo. I'm a Venom as a team name. Na mi train sprints hapa Nyayo na Kasarani, na sipagui huwa na train both Kenya, Uganda, hizo zote. So mi train ma sprinters, na sasa tumeprepare ni mi train Weissman called for Olympics. So tumekuwa tukiprepare for the last 4 years kwa hii event, na naona kufikia saizi mahali Weissman yako target ni kwanza ni kuingia finali. Juu hii ni Olympics yake ya kwanza, and then kwa finali anything can happen. Uwezi sema naendea medal ama naendea juu. Kila mtu mwenye ameingia finali, kila mtu anataka hiyo medal. Pia akiingia finali pia sisi tunataka hiyo medal juu ako ready. So, kufikia saizi ako ready, na tunaomba Mungu anaweza make surprise. Yeah.
Well, if there's anyone who should be complaining, it is me. Have you even take time to smell yourself? You smell, I don't know, did you even take a shower?
The question should be, who is smelling? And of course, it is not me.
Is that her real hair?
Wait until she speaks.
It looks like Ethiopia is a very fertile land. Did she come alone? Why do you ask? The same reason you are secretly wondering.
You leave me alone, you fake blind or team. You think you will understand? And my relationship was pure and true.
Let this fake man give you a reference, eh? Never ever cry over another human being, eh? We are so many, and that is why thousands die each day to create more space.
anataka tutukaf. Anapenda mukuchu, anapenda cash, anapenda juku seti kabla tuanze kusmash.
Kanapenda mukuchu, sema cash. Mukuchu na mashash. Kanapenda mukuchu na mabash. Akiona mukuchu ana blush. Kanapenda mukuchu, sema cash. Mukuchu na mashash. Kanapenda mukuchu na mabash. Akiona mukuchu ana blush.
Anataka this and that, yani heels na bag, expensive things on Instagram. Akifly ni first class, ana chest the bag. Go USA dubs then Doha Qatar. Natasha
yes papa,
unajua kurombosa.
yes papa,
to the left na right, yani round and round, yani spin your waist like a merry-go-round. Anataka wig na mina mpea cash, nunua human hair sizo nywele za farasi. Anapenda mukuchu na lipangu tax, ukimutiaga mechi anajilipia cab. Ni hot cake fresh off the oven, akiwaga na mimi yako sorted, big yako loaded. Na napenda gado.
Anataka that, unasikia hu baby girl, anataka tutukaf. Anapenda mukuchu, anapenda cash, na anapenda juku seti kabla tuanze ku anataka this, anataka that, unasikia hu baby girl, anataka tutukaf. Anapenda mukuchu, anapenda cash, na anapenda juku seti kabla tuanze ku.
Kanapenda mukuchu, sema cash. Mukuchu na mashash. Kanapenda mukuchu na mabash. Akiona mukuchu ana blush. Kanapenda mukuchu, sema cash. Mukuchu na mashash. Kanapenda mukuchu na mabash. Akiona mukuchu ana blush.
Anapenda stories za do, kianza stories za love tambo. Anataka akisikia kwenda Mombasa, usimwambie
aki baby tutapanga.
Akisikia kwenda Mombasa, unalipa ndege anaenda kujibamba. Endelea kutuma tu message. Sweetheart, good morning. Mimi nilituma M-Pesa. Guess what, anakuja leo jioni. Saile analenga simu yako. Ni mimi na manzi yako. Buda, tafuta pesa. Wacha nikuibie. Anapenda mukuchu, anapenda cash. Ali-change test na pia class.
Anataka this, anataka that, unasikia hu baby girl, anataka tutuka.